French Bulldog history. The backstory you might not know.
There's more to the history of the French Bulldog in America than meets the eye, and its backstory involves a keen struggle to establish dominance and influence between earlier fanciers of the breed in three countries: America, England, and France. How did it go down? The answer may lie within a seemingly simple change of one's mind and one's AKC registrations, and an epic war of ears.
The gray brindle turned dark.
This AKC registration is a curious case indeed. This is Brownie 2, by champion Nelcote Gammon, the second winner of the 1910 FBDCA specialty after the disqualification of Sal Volatile, the original winner that year. She was bred by Mary Winthrop out of her female soubrette, whelped April 21, 1910. She is also clearly registered as a gray brindle, as were many other French bulldogs of the time. The dam of Brownie 2 was a daughter of Endcliffe Athos, sire of several gray brindles owned by the Purdy brothers, as was champion Nelcote Gammon at this point. This registration in Volume 27 is very interesting because of what Brownie 2's owner and breeder, Mary Winthrop Turner, intentionally changed in Volume 28. Mary Winthrop Turner, winner of the 1910 and 1911 FBDCA specialties and winner of Westminster 1911 French Bulldogs with international champion Charlemagne of Amersham, intentionally changed several of her dogs' registrations to make them dark brindle, such as this one of champion Mignon of Amersham, originally registered as simply brindle, then changed for point advantage to dark brindle in Volume 28. Why would she do this, one might ask? Because Mary Winthrop Turner, who was close and collaborated with senior FBDCA members and respected global judges, had been tipped off, and that change was coming against her personally. And so she adapted. And in the case of Brownie 2, Mary Winthrop Turner changed her original registered color from a gray brindle to a dark brindle at the end of 1911, the year that Samuel L. Goldenberg convinced the FBDCA to implement changes to the breed standard regarding color. Among those changes were giving preference in points to dark brindles, once again, and now making any nose other than black a disqualification in the show ring. The timing of this change was targeted specifically toward Mary Winthrop Turner's highly celebrated import from England, international champion Charlemagne of Amersham, who won Westminster under FBDCA President Richard Hunt. And while it doesn't always show in every light, Charlemagne of Amersham, described as a red brindle by the press who covered him at Westminster, had a very light nose leather in natural light.
Miss Winthrop, previous to the exhibition of the dog in the ring, bought him from Charles Pelham Clinton, the exhibitor, for a price close to $2,000. Charlemagne of Amersham is a red piebald brindle dog in color, mostly white. Judges of the French Bulldog said he was one of the greatest of his type ever exhibited in any country. Boston Evening Transcript, Wednesday, February 15, 1911. Page 9.
To better understand the political climate behind the 1911 standard change, it is important to mention that there were extremely hard feelings between the FBDCA and the history behind the type of ears. Rose-eared like the British toy bulldogs, or tulip-eared, now called bat-eared. When British Judge George Raper placed the rose-eared variety over the bat-eared dogs at Westminster 1897, the Americans protested in 1898 and formed their own club with their own standard, and boycotted Westminster in 1898, despite attempts to showcase both types of ears as shown in this cover from 1898. If you look closely, you can see that there are two types of French bulldogs, and Westminster had refused to disallow the rose-eared versions from competition, instead holding two separate categories. After Judge E.D. Faulkner backed out of his assignment, George Raper was tasked once again to judge the two categories based upon the new FBDCA standard as well as the British version.
It would be unfair to ask Judge E.D. Faulkner, said John H. Buchan of the French Bulldog Club last night, to compel him to judge under a double standard, and consequently, our club has withdrawn its special prizes for the breed, but not until the Westminster Club has refused to abolish the class for the wrong type. The Waldorf Astoria show lacks the official endorsement of the American Kennel Club, but as no admission fee is to be charged, this will not disqualify the exhibitors. Meanwhile, society women who own French bulls are puzzling whether to be faithful to the old show or to take up the new one. New York Sun, January 30th, 1898, page 8.
The enormous success of the FBDCA show sparked the popularity of this breed in America, where registrations increased to a high between 1911 and 1912. The prices of these dogs were often $5,000 to $10,000 even in 1897, which would be equivalent to between $140,000 to $350,000 today.
George Raper should have known better than to carry the fire and devastation of bulldog war into your country by declining to accept the bad-eared Frenchman. But if your bulldog folks are the least little bit like ours, and if your papers will stand them, the American fancy is in for an interminable controversy which may degenerate into the most insignificant individuals being permitted by complacent editors to air their opinions by the yard and pose as the leaders of an important faction of the doggy world. On this side, a man has only to pay a price for a dog, and he becomes an authority in 30 minutes, is put up as a club judge, and if he indulges in poultry to the extent that he possesses the oof bird, is put on the committee. Then his opportunity arrives and he secures the election of his friends, his kennelmen, his grandmother, if he has one, and other reliable sources, and becomes a power in the canine circles of the day. I give all these pieces of information with the view of assisting the French Bulldog people on your side to marshal their forces in imposing array. And I further strongly advise them that if they conscientiously desire to make a splash, to insist on proxy voting being permitted, and then the man with the longest purse who can pay the subscriptions of most members, no matter how great a duffler he may be, can eventually pose as the strong man of the fancy. Mind, I don't suggest that George Raper, who is about the most independent man we have, ever lowered himself to be a tool of the log rollers. On the contrary, he has proven himself over and over again to be miles above that sort of thing. But mark my word, he has provided a fine opportunity for these gentry to display their genius. Roentgen Rays, Bitspur, 1897.
With the hostile political climate between American and British opinions, and the hotly contested chase for what would be eventually cited as the perfect breed type for this increasingly popular society breed, one must acknowledge the bias behind seemingly harmless change and all of the agendas that come with that push for change. Because change always comes with a catalyst, for better or for worse. And the French Bulldog Club of America was getting a hard press from someone with incredible amounts of money, posing themselves as an international authority at a time when facts couldn't be verified in a timely manner. And this individual, who couldn't sway his peers in France to see his vision, did not want a dog an international champion, imported from England, not carrying his kennel name, to be heralded as the poster child for French Bulldog type. To learn more about the history behind the change of the French Bulldog standard in 1911, and why Samuel L. Goldenberg was motivated to backdoor his personal agenda into the French Bulldog Club of America's standard when it was already rejected by the parent club in France that he'd been ejected, watch the full video at the end of this clip.